this your Christmas tree?
This is this
Oh, there's
Christmas
stickers.
tree.
Oh, that's what it is. I was trying to think, what's emergency supplies doing?
Body bag.
Pretty big bag for
Santa's in there.
Definitely look like emergency
It's
supplies.
Santa's sack.
Is all the council coming or just checking?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we have quorum. We can make all the decisions we want.
Did you get any boots?
Me? Yeah. Oh, I've had some.
How about Christmas boots?
It matches my dress.
Wow.
I didn't get it because I actually like those boots.
They're
more like Sharon's
They're like
Mooney.
yours on
Sharon's Mooney one?
Gold down on mine.
I don't know.
That's awesome.
Looks like you're gonna have something.
That's so much fun.
No, I'm leaving that to team.
I didn't have it reviewed enough. I've got more questions than I have. But I brought this little thing and see if I can get it on here.
I was gonna. It's terrible. I know, that's what I'm thinking, I'm not very good at one now. Are you gonna call one straight?
Yeah, I will. I just need to get this up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Isn't it, that's how old torture works? You said it's old torture? Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Where's that meeting tonight, dear? You want?
I thought it was last night. Tonight. I don't think so. As much as I'm in
I'm
sympathy.
gonna plug it.
You're not going.
Jay, do you mind?
I mean, I guess I'll see how tonight this unfolds, but yeah.
I said I'm going to the Royal thing, and I was here at 3 thinking our meeting was earlier. We'd zip over there, but that's less than from now.
Well, I thought, yeah, I totally missed
How
the
is
dates.
Steve
I thought
going to that?
well, I thought it was yesterday,
Oh, gosh.
but I didn't go, but yeah,
Good.
yeah.
I just got, I
Hi,
got a
Sharon.
confirmation that Air Serv hasn't been up here. I haven't trusted any, and they said that they.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you don't want to go all the way into town to find out
Yeah.
it's the wrong way. I saw Shelley's note saying, well,
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the, excuse me, the first budget meeting of the season. I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, including our near neighbors, the Shannon First Nation and South First Nation. Welcome to the meeting for November 23rd, 2023. Please be sure to have your cell phones off, including the vibration mode. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Committee, are there any additions or changes to the agenda? We have Councillor Epp on conference call here, but she's not feeling as well to be in person. So welcome, Councillor Epp.
Hello.
Okay. So we'll move on to public participation. If there's anyone that wishes to speak, please come up to the mic, state your name and the street in which you live. Go ahead.
Tamara Ballard, Wooten Road. I have a few questions here.
Oh, do we have the mic? Is the mic closed?
It is.
It is.
Like it was so preachy.
Gives me a chance to stretch.
Thank you. So I just jotted them down instead of flipping through the pages. So on the summary page, first it says 14 bylaw. The budget is, oh, sorry, I scratched on. Moving on. Line item 1212 5300 says councilors other. 2023 was budgeted for 3,500, year to date 6,300, and is projected for the 6,500. So I'm wondering, what does council other mean? Moving down to 2122 2310, general government. Oh, sorry, it's for the website. It says it's budgeted for $10,000. Year to date, it's $4,000 has been spent, and it's $10,000 plus to 2028. Seems like a lot of money to move forward when we've only spent less than half so far. I noted that the fire department has no Halloween event budget at all. I'm curious what that is. Building department, conferences and seminars. Budget was $1,500, year to date $2,800. Is this for public works for conferences and whatnot? And maybe if it is, we should increase the budget. Transportation services. Bridges, 2023 was budgeted $25,437. Nothing year to date, carries on for the same price till 2028. Is this for all bridges? Woody Beach stair monitoring, 2023, $2,500 budget, year to date is blank. It's projected for 2024 is again 2,500. No money has been spent, so maybe we can reduce that amount. Recreations and cultural services, bike maintenance park, $500 year to date, nothing. There is increases though, small, but still there's increases. Projected. School site, Metchosin Arts and Cultural rent recommended. Is that the rent that we receive from them? Year to date, $5,714. And is projected from 2024 to 2028, 8,000. I was wondering if that was money we received. The Metchosin 2024 budget increases. Council increase. Wage, $4,228. Increase. Other increase, $6,500. Total amount of $10,728. Is that increase per councillor? And what is other increase mean? Public Works. Doggy Doo collection, $27,000, $12,000 for signage, and $3,000 a week for drop-off. Seems like a lot of money for this. Last thing, with the correspondence letter, number 3, I did notice that there is no line item for a budget for EV chargers, but I do agree fully that it is time to get the EV chargers up and running, and it should be a pay-as-you-go. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Jennifer Burgess, 3837 Duke Road. I believe on your agenda it says public input at a further place down the agenda. That might be more appropriate for some of the comments that I have than public participation right now. So is that open to add some comments at that stage.
And that is what we did last year too. It worked out really well. So yes, you're welcome to speak to
Okay,
comments that might come up.
thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, seeing no other people interested at the podium, we'll move on to reports. On page 3, I'll ask Ms. Tomasky to step forward and walk us through this case.
Does everybody mind if I unplug that? Okay, good. Because I'm quite,
You have to show.
I can shout. No worries there.
Kill it. It's easy to
Please.
do.
Yeah, it's just piercing it. Oh, never mind. That's not on. Good afternoon, committee. So I'm going to walk you through, give you an overview of the first draft of the 2024 to 2028 budget. Tina.
Councillor Eck, we are looking at a PowerPoint. So I'm sure that Ms. Tarnowski is going to explain as best she can so you can understand the steps of that.
Sure thing.
All right, now we're moving. Just a really quick recap on components of the budget. We have the operating budget, which is what we're discussing today. It's going to be followed by the capital and surplus or one-time, supplemental or one-time because that is funded by surplus. So we will not be discussing one-time requests and items until early next year when we know what projected surplus for 2023 is. And then there's the reserve, which a discussion that we have a little later. But it does play into our discussion as we're going through capital because some of the expenditures will be funded by the reserve. So today's goal is to introduce the 2024 to 2028 financial plan to the committee and to the public, and to provide overview of the major components of the financial plan, to provide details for budget increases, and also to add context to the staff report. Here is the budget timeline as scheduled to date. So we have today's meeting, which is on November 23rd, just an introduction of the budget, followed by a next meeting, which is going to be on December 7th and January 11th. So the anticipation is that we will be discussing operating budget at those meetings as well. So that gives us 3 chances to be discussing operating budget. Then move forward to January 25th and February 8th. This is when we're expecting that we'll be discussing capital budgets at that time. And the next meeting following that will be February 22nd. This is when I'm anticipating that we will have a pretty good idea of what the 2023 surplus is going to be so that we can bring forward the one-time item discussions at that time. So going forward, March 7th is speaking, if necessary, discussing more about one-time or any other parts of the components of the budget. And if we need to add more meetings, of course, we have the ability to do that, just keeping in mind that the bylaw has to be adopted before May 15th. So if we work backwards, we do have, we have built in a bit of a cushion for further discussion if necessary. So the budget at a glance, the draft budget currently sits at 12.6 general tax increase. And you will see on the page that's named 2024 increase percentage and 2024 increase. Those are the pages that all those additional, the percentage and dollar amount, what makes up the 12.6% increase. And of course, all of these proposed items are just that, they're just proposed. And we'll discuss in details on the additional service level in the 2024 increase percentage and 2024 increase pages. A really quick recap of 2023. It's drawing to a close, but the district is no different and immune. We're much in the same position as all the other municipalities. cost pressures, supply chain disruptions continues. It continues. We're getting quotes where it's only valid for 2 weeks. It's like, well, 2 weeks back now, or we'll give you another new quote. So there were 2 staffing changes at the district office. One was in public works, that's a replacement, and administration, that's a replacement as well. So in a wrap up, despite our best collective efforts, we wanted to budget or what's to the best of our ability. We're getting a lot of cost pressures, and you will see that some of the budgets really did not meet the actual expenses that actually have been incurred to date. Okay, so a really quick overview on what is referred to as the overview of the different departments and the services that each department provide. So what we loosely refer to as the legislative and general government, that includes administration, finance, and IT. Then protective services, we have the police, the fire, emergency program, building inspection, and bylaw enforcement. So in the areas of public works, that includes engineering, so that includes roads and related infrastructures and maintenance. So planning, parks and trails, and then of course recreation and cultural is another component of our service areas. A couple things to note about the increases for the 2024 general operating budget. So there's no across-the-board inflational increase. So we didn't say, the inflation is currently at 5.4, we're going to use 5% right across the board. So where increases are included is things that are non-discretionary. So those include the negotiated wage increases from the QP agreement and expenses like utilities and things like that. So as much as we wish not to increase it, we really don't have much of a say in that. Okay, in administration, as I mentioned earlier, there's been one staffing change, so it's a legislative services assistant. Administration amended or are amending 3 really huge bylaws that are important in the operations of the district. So that include animal control, the good neighbor, which consolidates 2 bylaws, and then the building bylaw that will be coming forward in the very near future. So just a note to note about the wages for the CAO. We budgeted 6 months in 2023. So therefore, that's why you only see 26 months for 2024, because we budgeted half of it last year. And the last bullet is there will be additional IT requirements and requests for funding coming forward, because I just had a meeting with our IT service provider this afternoon. We are in need, we're short on server space, storage space. Staff is facing the challenge of not even being able to send email because our local drives are full. We're also, one of the initiatives that I'm recommending that we move forward with is to start to digitize our records. And of course with that, there comes the need for additional storage space for that as well. Okay, the RCMP Protective Services, the assumption that we use for budgeting purposes is $200,000 per officer. So 70% is for the officer themselves, and the remainder is for support staff that we are responsible to pay for. And the assumption up until this point has been that the 15% tax increase for going from 30% to 70% is going to be phased over 6 years. So just for the policing part itself, it's a $77,000 tax increase annually for just policing. And we're also drawing down on the police reserve. So based on the current projection, the reserve is expected to be drawn down in 2028. So of course, keeping in mind that that can be drawn down sooner or later, it all depends on how much council wishes to tax for the police. Building inspection and bylaw enforcement, staff has completed the building bylaw review, so that will be coming forward to council in the next couple of weeks. We projected a really modest forecast for 2024 in terms of building revenue, because there are a couple of unknowns that at this point is just that unknown. The biggest one being the impact of all the various provincial housing mandates and regulations that are coming down on all municipalities. And also we recognize that the new fee structure that's been proposed in the amended bylaw, there's no way of estimating what impact that will have on the revenue for the immediate next year. One quick note about the contracted bylaw enforcement services is that the hourly rate for 2024 will increase, as will the hours of usage. So how the contract is based on is the hourly rate plus the historical hours of usage. And we saw an increase of usage in 2023. Engineering and public works. The road replacement and maintenance program, we need to do further work on that. And another proposal that I'm proposing is to separate out the electronic and regular signage in different GLs, because we're finding that it's a little bit difficult to track when currently we have both types of signage in the one same account. So if you look and see the signage is over, you don't really know if it's based on due to the replacing of regular signs or maintaining those electronic signs. Understandably, those electronic signs are way more expensive to maintain and replace, and we seem to be running into quite regular instances where they're being run over and things like that. So. Planning. Included in the 12.6% increase is to funding for an additional day for our contract planner. Again, due to we know that the housing mandates are coming down, and will be coming down. So along the same line is really to reallocate legal expenses to support the planning department. So it's not necessarily increasing, but just reallocating from other departments, primarily from bylaw enforcement. School site, the washroom and kitchen renovation is expected to be completed by December 31st of this year. So going forward, the next step is to determine the priority of user groups and then setting the rates and setting up a regular maintenance and operating plans. So currently the challenge with maintaining the school is that there's no overall maintenance and replacement plan. So it's really reactive. This is broken. Can we fix this? Oh, that's broken. Do we have the money to fix that? So it really is not an ideal situation at all to maintain an asset that we own, given the fact that it is going to undergo substantial renovation as well. Oh, yeah, that's it. Questions? Would you like me to remain up here, or what's a rush?
Sure, if you could, and
Sure.
anybody has questions, we can ask. Okay, so I'm going to open up to the committee for discussion. Anybody like to chime in on first glance of the budget? Councillor Shukin, sorry.
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Donaldson. Just the phase-in of the policing costs. So I think it's 6 years now, and we were talking about, I think it was 3 years last year.
Phase-in, so there's two different phase-in. So the phase-in, referring to the slide, was phasing of the impact, the increase in funding, going from paying for 30% to paying for 70%. So I think the phasing you're referring to is the phasing of the number of officers.
Yeah.
So the number of officers is, according to our agreement, is a full strength of 5.
Okay.
But however, given that there's a lag in the invoicing, so we don't even know for 2023 if we will even pay for the 4 members. So because there's quite a lag, we've only received 2 invoices from the RCMP.
Okay.
So the catch-up part is really about March or so, when they reconcile and say, oh, this is how much you owe us.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few more questions. Ms. Tarnowski, there was reference to the reserve fund.
Mhm.
And am I right in hearing that that's going to be dispersed over a period of 6 years? Is that correct?
For the policing reserve, based on the current amount that we're drawing down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So on that note,
Mhm.
so once we've drawn it down, then do we completely eliminate the reserve? Because
Yes.
we'll know the costs more efficiently at that
Yes.
point, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a few more. So, through you again. So the CAO's salary being only 6 months this year, I recognize we did that for 2023. And the thinking is to keep it at 6 months for 2024.
Right.
Is there a reason for that?
Oh, so because you budgeted last year, it wasn't spent, so that
Yeah.
6 months will get carried forward to 2024. So that's not new revenue, because that's been taxed. But the remaining 6 months, you have to tax for that, because you only taxed for 6 months last year. So we're carrying forward the unspent amount from 2023
Yeah.
to 2024 for 6 months, and then the second 6 months, you have to tax for that.
But it sounds like for 2024, the amount this year that was allocated is carried forward, but it'll go in
Correct.
reserve, I would think.
But
if not
it's part of the
spent.
carry forward, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, part of the surplus.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. But again, I'm just wondering. Again, it's a question. I'm not sure it's the
Mhm.
right answer. Is it wise to only budget for 6 months when the goal is to fill the position?
But it is
confirm the
but it
position?
is the full year. So for the first 6 months, the
Mm.
funding for that is
Just-
being brought forward from 2023.
Gotcha.
And then from the second half of the year, we
Okay.
didn't tax rate in 2023,
Yeah.
so now we have tax rate in 2024.
I see. Okay. Okay. Sorry, my assumption was that any surplus that we have would go into reserve. It doesn't carry
No.
forward.
No, it does not all go to reserve. That's how we fund the one times. So some of it goes to reserve, some of it doesn't go to reserve.
Okay.
Not all of it, yeah.
Okay, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
I just am confused about why that amount why that amount would carry forward.
Because it's
Yeah.
unspent, it's carried forward, you tax
Okay,
rate, you
I
didn't
understand
spend
that.
it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, Mary, do you have any queries?
I was just going to say, last year we decided not to raise the taxes for the full year. So we had to finish off the last 6 months to get the money to pay for CEO from January 1 all the way to December this year. Otherwise, we would only have had the money to, what's in the budget. So we had the money to go the full year now.
Mm-hmm.
So we consciously decided that, contrary to the advice of the CFO.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, my confusion comes from that in understanding that I believe that we're going to have to fund this full position, but I'm confused about how that money carries forward to that allocation. Because I thought you don't carry money forward, you gotta
You
deal
can-
with one-time fees or
No, you can
reserve.
carry forward. You can carry forward, so that's why we have to go through and say, is this legit carry over?
Okay,
Or is this something that we budgeted and for whatever reason, we're not gonna do it in 2024? So then that can roll into the surplus, which can be spent on other expenditures.
okay.
But it's no different than what we did with the climate action plan. Just carry it forward because we didn't spend the full budget for amount in 2022.
Yeah.
So we carry for a little bit 2023 and then we added more money to that. So,
Okay,
yeah.
great, thank you. Thank you.
Good question.
Thanks.
Mary Lou, did you have any queries?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I had one question about the leasing agent fee.
Mm.
Will we be needing the leasing agent in 2024, 25, 26 on? I don't think we will.
That's for the school.
Yeah, so
Page 27.
that's for the school, page 27, line item.
It's in the middle, but not numbered.
Yeah, it's right below leasing agent fee in expenditures.
Right, yeah, so that item is really left in there as not necessarily belonging to the expense of leasing agent, but we need to do something to help operate the school and maintain the school. So, you know, it could be moved to a different line, but essentially the intent is that we need to come up with some sort of plan to, for someone or a company, whatever it is, to check the space when we lease it out and just, you know, activities like that. So it could be moved to a different line, but that is the intention of that budget.
So it's just an earmarking at this
That's
point.
right, yes.
Anything else?
No, that's fine, thanks.
Okay. I appreciate you explaining the signage budget, because it was quite a lot more than that we had. And I was going to say, maybe we should only work within our budget, but that makes more sense now with the electronic radar signs. And I know we have had some
Run-ins, literally.
Literally, yes, yes, some vandalism or accidents or whatever combination of those sorts of things. So it'd be nice to have a better idea of how those are separated, what the more realistic costs are, and looking at the new sign that we're looking at here. What page did I see that? On page 31, the budget increases, and one of those is the doggy doo collection of a couple times a week, how that's going to increase over time, coming out of the animal report bylaw and some recommendations that were coming from there. There were a couple of different, just to sort of recap, there were a couple of different options, and one was an educational campaign through various media venues, as well as including a leave no trace, but we've jumped on top of it a little sooner by doing suggesting we put in some canisters at the beaches. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Let's see how we'll monitor that and see how that goes. But it is labor intensive, and it's also especially disposing of the feces.
Yeah, so if I may add, Councillor Donaldson, is disposal of the feces cannot be disposed along with our regular garbage. It has to be dropped off at Heartland on its own, so it's not garbage plus dog feces in one bag or one
It
container.
has to be separate.
Yeah.
Sorry, remind me where that is again?
That's on page 31. The whole page is regarding budget increases for this coming year.
Thank you.
So just to break it down, each post unit with the signs and the canister is approximately $1,000 just standalone. And then there's the labor on top of that, which is quite steep to maintain those. So that's where the leave no trace is good. Start educating people what you pack in, you pack out. Yeah, and practicing that. Having said that, with a recent meeting that the mayor and I had with a member of the business community, that was another thing that came up, is having canisters specifically when there's events. So there are costs to these things. So when we have events, those costs have to be passed over to the people probably that book our facilities. Right? So
Yeah.
it's all part of doing business. And having choices. Did anybody have any questions about the proposed budget increases? I know we will be deliberating all those in the coming months. Yes, Ms. Transky?
I was just going to add a little more information on to the items on page 31.
Okay,
So if we start from the top, let's look at the FLY contract.
sure.
The last year we reduced it to 10,000, but for 2023 we are expecting actuals of $25,000. So even though we consciously reduced it, it's not reflected in the usage. Okay, so that's what we're proposing, that to increase that budget based on what we're seeing in the actuals. What else was there? Let me just. The engineer under Public Works. So our current contract engineer is planning to retire in June 2024. I've been in conversation with one engineering firm just to get an idea of what the rates we'll be looking at. So I have been given a blended rate, so that means that we're not going to be getting a full-fledged PNG, so because we don't sign or seal any drawings, so I don't think the need is there for a PNG, but we will get a technician and maybe a junior engineer who is able to do most of the tasks that we require, with the ability to consult with senior engineer as needed. So the blended rate that's been quoted is $200 an hour, and that's 3 times what we're paying the current engineer.
And,
Councillor Shippen, yes?
sorry, and that, I'm assuming that's 1 day a week as well? Would we look, that's all we're, okay, great.
So a sealed engineer, is that passed over to, you know, somebody that's like, say, building a house, they would have those costs?
Is there anything else? I think the school site itself is pretty self-explanatory. If we're going to rent out the space, we're going to need to pay for more frequent janitorial services, as well as hydro and all those associated expenses with that.
And there's an increase on the invasive species control?
So, so the invasive species refers specifically to rabbit management. So it's been, last year we had $10,000 in the budget. Really the intention at that time was to do it one time and see how well it works. I can tell you it was very well received, because I received numerous emails and said, well, can you send your contractor out to my property and to capture that? So for this budget, it still remains at $10,000, but of course it's up to the committee if you wish to increase that. You know, I'm not able to quantify how big of a dent we made last year, but we definitely made some difference. It really, to me, is an initiative that has to continue. It's, you know, we're really not in a position to do a one-off and then say we're done with the rabbit population.
Yeah, I think our window of when we had them booked too was quite short, so if we give advance notice, I think we'll be ahead of that as well, going forth. Because who knows what their cycles are, I guess.
Yeah, it crossed my mind earlier this year, thinking about rabbits, that we need an actual rabbit strategy, because it's not going to go away in the course of a year. And I mean, I see plenty of them now, and I mean, I hope it made a dent, but maybe 2 years from now, it would be like nothing happened. So, yeah, it would be. Yeah, again, I think I'd be supportive of the budget, but maybe as we move along, it would be good to develop the strategy, whatever that may be. So.
Yeah, certainly, like even a twice a year.
Yeah. So if we were to do twice a year, we'll definitely have to increase the budget to about 15,000. The first time that the first round that was done in spring or late spring was $8,500. So the remainder was a token, really, in the $1,500. It's not going to get you a lot. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a significant plan of action, because I saw quite a few of those rabbits waiting to be picked up. So it worked fairly well. It was just too short of a term, and we were fitting it in with his schedule. So yeah, advanced planning would certainly help us, and I would suggest that we do it twice, just to as a follow through. Otherwise, we're just going to be chasing it.
Yeah.
Chasing rabbits.
Chasing rabbits. Well, and we're getting positive feedback from the farmers that they're seeing a change too, which is really significant. I don't know if all neighbors are feeling that, but I know just locally on the grounds we saw a change, but they're busy now. There's more rabbit holes being hunted and whatnot. So yeah, there was lots of babies being born. Yes.
And let us not forget the bullfrog as well.
Yes.
Bullfrogs.
Yes, that's still in the
Thank you.
budget.
yeah, it's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, because there were quite a few sightings this last year.
Yeah.
Since about August, I was getting comments back, discovering them. So, and they're not just in Metchosin anymore; they're moving further afield. Mary Lou?
I was hoping, this is going in the wrong direction, but in terms of general government, I was hoping that we could have 2 volunteer appreciation events. So that we're budgeted for 700 and then request that we have 2 events at 1,400. That's for a matter of discussion, of course.
I remember we did discuss that, and I was looking at another area where I was wondering, it was a promotion area, and I'm not sure if that's similar, what those funds actually are used for. If that's where we can go from. But again, that is certainly for future discussions. We don't have numbers on all these lines, just on the one page, so it's more difficult to navigate. So perhaps when we meet again in December, we have numbers, as a number column. Is that possible, Ms. Tarnowski?
The row number?
Yes, the row numbers for like the codes there.
Mhm.
Yeah, we just got, it seems so, it's just on one page.
I have another question.
Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, Mr. Tarnowski, thank you very much. Snappy presentation.
Oh,
Well put together. I have I don't know what you would call it, almost a structural question. It's about
Mhm.
page 5, where we've got the table.
Mhm.
I'm troubled by, or have questions about, way at the bottom, tax increase required,
Mhm.
and the use of the the cumulative figures. So like as the years go on, so in 2025,
Right.
it's noted as 15.7%.
Yeah.
But below that, it's actually the true increase that
For
year
that
is
year.
forecast for 3.1%. I think it's actually, I'm really struggling to understand how it's helpful to provide the bigger number.
Mhm.
I've
We
seen
can
it before,
remove
like,
that,
okay, yeah, because, great, and again, I think it can be misleading to people, as we saw with the grumpy taxpayers
Mhm.
calling out, 20% increases for the next 5 years. Great, that would be,
No
thank
problem.
And on page 11, under the fire department, we have the wildfire income, and then we also have a line item for BC wildfires. And I can't remember if there was a follow-up. So we have the income. Do we have any sort of details on what's coming in, what's going out, and where is the money being allocated? I know there were certain remuneration going to the firefighters who participated. And we had talked about some of those funds going into our equipment. Do we have a breakdown, or could we have a breakdown as to where that's all being allocated? So we have a better
For the
understanding.
revenue?
Revenue and expense.
So the expenses are just that, they're under the, let me just see, it's actually 2 spots here. The expenses are,
It's under BC wildfires below firefighting force.
yeah, so there's part of it is in there, the expenses, but also there are expenses under, I'm not finding that line item. Let me bring you that information back to you at the next meeting, because I know those expenses are split between 2 line items, and I'm just not seeing where the second one is right now. But in terms of the revenue, whatever is revenue is showing is what has been received to date, and there has been no decision or discussion yet as to how to handle the surplus from the firefighting deployment.
And so is this revenue, this includes the payment to the participants?
No, that's just revenue, that's everything that's paid as to the district for both the personnel as well as the truck.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
So it's
all
everything.
inclusive.
That's right, yeah.
Thank you. Mary?
One of the things that stands out on page 29, the summary table, Ms. Tarnowski, is the 28% increase in expenses for the school site. And do you see that as a trajectory where we're going from 67,000 to 91,190? Do you see that increasing every year? So this is page 29.
As a school site. No, I don't anticipate that that's going to increase at that exponentially at that rate, given the fact that we don't have any revenue coming in yet, and nor can we guess what the revenue is going to be. So that will be offset by whatever revenue we can generate from rental space. But that's just a first guess for first year of having a completed space. And the expenses on the expense side.
Just as a follow-up to that, so right now there's no revenue from the school site.
No, very, very minimal. I think we've rented it, very minimal. I think we rented it less than 5 times this year. We're talking about the gym space itself.
So this is not including the leased tenants? Okay.
Okay, so we do have the lease tenants revenue from that, and then there should be revenue from the MACA as well.
Yep, so the MACA is under,
Recreation.
I'm sorry, they are under the school site, so pardon me, yes, so it does include the MACA rent. My mistake, it does include all the rents from the school, so, yeah. But in terms of the actual, the gymnasium itself, I would say it's less than 1,000, if that. I don't think we generated that, so.
We will be having our visioning workshop next week, so those are things we can talk about more, including renting out parking lots or the field, those sorts of things too. There's lots of options for the site.
Question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So questions on page 22, or about stuff on page 22. One of the items that I wanted to keep an eye on this year was, or as it unfolded in 2023, was the Public Works other departments. Because I think that's the fund where Public Works draws from to support grounds group, or grounds people, organizations, things on the grounds. So it looks like it's actually coming in, or it's projected to come in around budget. So that's seems to be good news on that front. But
right now it's a mishmash of some groups doing their own mowing, for example, maintenance, and some Public Works doing. So it's not uniform across the board.
yeah.
So again, depending on the committee's direction and wishes, is should we restore it to the previous year, which was $50,000, and we say to the user groups that the Public Works will take care of all the maintenance, like lawn mowing, for example, some other minor maintenance, or what is the direction going forward?
Yeah.
So that it's the same for everybody instead of each group having to come up with their own solution.
Yeah. So, Councillor Donaldson.
Yes.
And that's an interesting point. And I hesitate to applied consistency where things are not always the same. So for example, I did talk to the people at the Metchosin Community Association, and they said that, at the point I talked to them, they said that they were great to do their grounds around the house, but they really did want Public Works help for the parking lot and whatnot. So it would be, and you know, I am open to increasing that budget if it takes some of the burden off our volunteers. I think it was a good move to reduce it from 50 because it had seemed to be always below that. But I don't want to put anything on people who are already helping the community out. And so again, that's one where maybe we look at additional help, but whether there's consistency or not, I mean, maybe that's something we ask the groups. And I do get your point. We need to have a consistent
somewhat
approach.
consistent. But to your point as well, if the groups prefer whatever arrangement they currently have works for them, that's great as well. We just would be cognizant that we're not putting them in a situation where they have to constantly ask the volunteers, in addition to what they currently already do, come on in and do more maintenance for the property that they only occupy. We own the property.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, that there was some feedback actually at the grounds group meeting as well. Actually, it was a very involved conversation. But one of the things that came up was concerns about operating machinery where, one, would take away from union job, and others, there's safety factors with things flying, whether it was weed eaters or lawnmowers, that sort of thing. So those are things that are important to consider as well. I know that the house, I believe they hire somebody actually to do their lawns and whatnot, whereas I know that the equestrians would get out there and do weed eaters. Now they've got a changing of some of their management, but the bigger jobs, they certainly would appreciate the actual mowing, whereas they would still do their maintenance around their building and the riding ring. But when it comes to the parking lot and the bigger lawns and that, which takes a lot longer, it probably would go back to the model we had before.
Yeah.
So the risk assessment is sort of what their concerns were, I think, from that meeting too.
Mm-hmm. Great. Oh, sorry, I have one more question. So I most of the line items below Public Works Other are blank at this moment,
That's good.
and including like Metchosin Day. Is there, and I forget if there were actual, I'm sure there was a Metchosin Day allocation, but I forget the rest of the amounts that were there.
We did have a chosen day.
It's here.
It's, I think, it's under recreation and culture.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe, okay.
A chosen day committee under arts and culture on page 25,
Great.
middle of the page.
That's $7,034.
So we're projecting 10,000 because of the 7,000. There were a lot of the cost that the committee had to bear because we only had 7,000. So no different than any other expenses. The rentals for the toilets has gone up a lot, rentals for the flaggers and all those things. So it's quite significant. So we really had to juggle to get it within the 7,000.
And that's a direct benefit to our residents as well, to have a good budget on that for safety and sanitation. So there's a new position being projected for the fire department. Can we have any kind of background on what that is going forward?
Reggie? Here you go. Should I speak to that?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, good. So that new position for the department is for support staff for the fire chief, who has been doing without the support staff ever. So that's the position. Yeah. And I believe we can combine with the EOC as well. We talked about that. We talked about so many different scenarios. I don't recall anymore.
Yes, the new regulations that are coming down from EMCR, Emergency Management, Climate, something, I don't remember the other one, new acronym. Anyway, there's a lot more regulation and requirements for emergency care and documentation more than anything else. And with that, just to make sure, I'm just finding myself so busy I don't have time to get it all done. And in order to meet some of these new challenges, I do suspect there might even be some funding for something like that coming forward because of these new regulations. I just had a meeting on it this afternoon, so we might be able to even get some partial funding for it.
Yeah, I did see some grants just recently that you had presented, and several of those to actually cover staffing. Go ahead.
So the new position, we sort of went through this last year a little bit, but will we get like a description to the chiefs? Yeah, I hear generally what the position is, but it'd be interesting to get a little bit more about what it entails, what the level of qualifications are, and if there's any opportunity when the chief isn't making this person super busy for other support elsewhere. Like, I don't even know if such a thing's possible, but yeah, just some deeper background on what it is we might fund. I'm open to considering it. It'd be just great to get more info. So.
Yeah, I'm expecting this to be a general, we do have a QP job description for a general administrative support staff.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Epp, do you have anything that you'd like to contribute to what we've been discussing?
Yeah, I have some questions.
Great.
One was, maybe I just missed it, but I was looking for $75,000 for the Active Transportation Network Planning Grant, or plan, which I'm hoping we will get reduced if we are accepted for that grant. The other one was some amount to be determined for a road safety fund. Another one was the end of, or sometime this term, a few months ago, we had decided or talked about that we would be hiring another person for the public works crew. And I think the last question was how many of the costs that we have included in this budget will we be able to offset with the Growing Communities Fund? And keep in mind that I really can't decipher pretty much anything that's being said through the podium microphone, and not much of anything else either except to Councillor Donaldson.
Okay.
I'll move.
Yeah. Good.
To know.
I'll move to the phone. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. We can certainly include the budget for the active transportation plan. Thank you. So we'll just include the revenue and the corresponding expenses. So we know that if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. So we can certainly do that. We're struggling to musical chair without snagging the cord here.
So that would that be like almost like a one-time action plan like we did before?
No, because the one time is anything that's funded from surplus.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll just show 2024 and then nothing subsequent to that. So in terms of the public works one, that's one of the things I've alluded to that will be coming forward there. I'm in a discussion, which obviously I'm not privy to disclose the details, but there will be some asks coming forward for public works personnel.
Okay. And the road safety fund?
So the road safety fund is, we can definitely include that. I'm just not sure of the amount that you would be asking to put in that. And so Councillor Epp, can you elaborate on what that would?
Well, we did have, two years ago, we had a $25,000 fund, and that was to fund extra, like radar speed signs, which, if you recall, Superintendent Preston mentioned when he was at the meeting so that cars don't park on the trail. Right now, we need something in there to keep that separate. Offhand, those are the ones that come to mind.
Okay. So just wanted to mention to you, because you couldn't hear very well my comment from earlier about the signage, is
Yeah.
I'm going to split the electronic signs and the regular signs. Because right now it's over a budget and it's very difficult to isolate what that was for. Is an electronic sign, which obviously is more expensive to maintain and versus the regular signage. So-
Yeah. Well, one thing too is that another place that we do need some type of curb or separators is so that when those signs are, like the one at Rocky Point has been hit and knocked over twice. So we need to be able to figure out something that we can put on either side of those signs that they basically can't be vandalized, because it would be a lot cheaper than trying to repair them if they get really smashed.
Yeah, exactly. So just for everybody's information, the electronic sign had to be sent to Quebec. Right. So, yeah.
And what about the growing communities fund? When are we going to be dealing with that?
So we'll have to deal with that, keep growing community funds. So I'll look to Councilor Donaldson and for some ideas, but we definitely need to discuss that. But we have no plan or a meeting or schedule to discuss that at the moment.
Right. All right, well, I think that's all I had. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up. Those are good reminders.
Question?
Yes, Councillor Shukin.
I'll move back.
Is there any budgetary need, and so I just went through the fire budget, and I don't recall if I saw it, but any more support for the feasibility study? For the new fire?
So the
Or is-
feasibility
It's like
study,
$50,000.
yeah, we
It's in here.
40,000.
Okay, sorry.
I don't know if it's in here, but it was
No.
40,000 from last year's budget and
That's right.
3,000 from a grant.
Yeah, so assuming, again, it wouldn't be done this year, but that's the same situation. Councillor Shukin will carry forward that amount because it's been budgeted for, not budgeted for, it's been spent from our surplus. And part of it is from the reserve, I believe. But whatever it is, we'll carry forward that amount to spend in 2024.
Okay.
So we won't tax it again.
So are we any closer to putting together an RFP for that, or are we just trying to
I have to-
accumulate money, or where are we?
I have to get in touch with Mr. Doylan because he wanted to talk to me about something. He said, call me.
The reason I'm asking is we've had one meeting a year, but without revisiting the same topic over and over, we did discuss last year of up to 80,000, and then after budget deliberations, we agreed on 50,000 or 40,000 with the extra 10,000 we just got from a grant. Yeah, so if the goalposts are going to change, then certainly we need to understand, next steps.
Yeah.
I just feel like it keeps delaying. It'd be nice to get a handle.
So the next step is to get RFP out, but recognizing that, try to incorporate the affordable housing piece. I've reached out to the couple organizations that Mr. Doylan mentioned that may have funding. None of them got back to me, so I'm assuming that they either don't have it or just oversubscribed. So we're just going with the assumption that we're going to use our own source revenue to fund that study, plus the $10,000 grant.
Great, good, thank you.
Councilor Donaldson?
Yes. Councillor Gray.
Yes, through the chair. I guess the first thing I would say about the budget is I'm concerned to see a 12.6% increase, tax increase this year. And I believe it's not a little bit higher. But I remember last year we started at 8.4 and ended at more than 11% tax increase. This year we're starting at 12.6. So I'm just concerned about where that might head to. But my specific question is on page 27, the school site. And one of our residents, Gary Smurfett, had remarked last year that we should remove or change the the description of the school capital repayment. He pointed out that we're not repaying anything, we're building up a reserve here. And just would like to see that line relabeled or placed differently in the budget. I'm not opposed to continuing to collect $42,500 to go into a reserve, but I don't see that it's linked any longer to the school.
As I recall, the reason it was there, it obviously was for consistency, but we had originally borrowed from the police reserves.
Not the police.
Originally,
Not the police.
and then that got paid back using 3 other different reserves. And the school has never been fully paid back on its own because it was never revenue generating that first 5 years as was promised. So I think that's why this is still on here and was explained by Mr. Weller how many years it was going to be at this cost.
Yeah, and I'm just asking that we continue to collect the money, but be clear about what we're collecting the money for, which is for a future expenditure. We're no longer collecting money to pay for the school. And I think that just should be clear in our financial documents.
So Mr. Armstrong, does this money not cover the cost that the school's not, it's not breaking even?
That's correct.
Yes, so this is what the taxpayers are actually subsidizing?
So this one is actually to top up, top up the amount that was borrowed from other reserves, capital reserves, to
Right.
purchase the school.
It's going to be a busy 2024. Mr. Chris Core gave a very good presentation last year, and we paid him, a significant fee for that report. It's certainly worth us revisiting it to see where those, I always call them knowledge nuggets, but his expertise to follow up on the information. That was a good investment, and I think we need to make sure that investment is used going forward. So that, like several other consultants and stuff, and consultants or studies that we do, they just get shelved, but we need to dust them off and pull them off the shelf and put them to use. That was the intent. It's not, the plan's not over. Any other questions, committee? Okay. Yes.
So just to clarify, the next meeting, we will go through this again, maybe dig into a few other,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the actual operating, correct, at the December 7th meeting.
Yeah, so there will be changes. There'll be a revised sheet supporting, because like I mentioned before, because of our IT storage, it's not a choice. We need the storage space.
yeah.
So I just don't have the quote yet. We just had the meeting this morning, this afternoon, so.
Yes.
So it was interesting to see the progression last year as the actual spend from 2022 came in. Do you expect it to be about the same? Like we may not know the final tally until like late February kind of thing? or-
Most of the expenses, we have a pretty good idea. There's no big surprises
Okay.
that's coming in. But you are correct that we will know the actual final total until early February at the earliest, because we know that the vendors will bill. They'll never bill by December 31st for any December services rendered in December, so they'll bill middle of January. And it gives us 30 days. If we take advantage of 30 days, that's the middle of February.
Okay. Thanks.
Councillor.
I wondered, through the chair, Ms. Janetsky, looking at the page 31, which provides us our increases in the financial terms, I take it that this does include, from the perspective of staff, the changes in service levels that you might be interested in seeing or not seeing. And so I'm just wondering if is there more to come on that front in terms of input from staff as to what you've seen as things that are needed to be done more or needed to be done less. I think we may have perspectives around the table about that, but I haven't had I haven't had a huge input from community members saying, hey, golly, we need this, we need that in services. But I wondered if you've had that experience, and I guess we'll perhaps be talking in our next meeting, hearing from, or later today with council on that. Any comments particularly?
So right off the bat that comes off, the expense that's not included in here internally, administration is records management strategy. As I've mentioned previously, is currently our records are at huge risk. They're stored in an unsecured space in paper. So it's really go down that hand in hand with the increased IT space is to digitize the record. So it's coming back with a little more refined budget of tackling this matter. This matter is a bit of a, well, not a bit, it's of an urgent matter. We need, the risk is huge if we do not start a process to mitigate that.
Thank you. And I guess, I mean, I do see it, we've heard a few things here, like reversing the cut that we made to the volunteer groups would be another sort of cost pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have included the invasive species question. I was interested to look just at the cost of shifting things around and having a CFO and a CAO. Looks like that amounts to more than, in total, more than a 4% tax increase. So if we hadn't proceeded with that, we wouldn't be looking at a 12% tax increase, a 12.6% tax increase, but more like a 8.6% tax increase. So there's one of the costs that we're bringing up on ourselves that keeps our this impressive possible tax increase this year. I don't have any other questions today of the CEO.
Okay. Councillor Schuster.
Sorry, just one more. To Mayor Little's thoughts about it, the volunteer appreciation events, and just where would that be allocated? I mean,
It's under general government. Let's just flip down.
And
Or not general government. So general government volunteer.
Page 9.
So yeah, page 9, bottom of legislative services, volunteer appreciation.
okay, thank you very much.
I noticed that there was an increase in our firefighter allowance. And I suspect that's call-out pay, correct?
That's correct.
Right, so because this is the total here, what is the average call-out pay per call? Not per person, just like per call.
They don't have the average per call because it just varies. I can just tell you that the rate is
Okay.
$16 to $17 an hour, $18 for officers. And the average call is approximately an hour.
Okay,
If that helps you any.
yeah, it does.
I can run
I
those
wasn't
figures, I
thinking
just
the
don't-
hourly, but that makes sense. When we were at UBCM, there was a proposal for the tax exemption to go up from 3,000 to 10,000. And it did get passed to go up to the province. We'll see if the province will honor that request. That also will help out volunteer firefighters throughout the province. There's a lot of support from the floor on that. I think it's long overdue. They've been really low for long. They've been 3,000 for a very, very long time. So fingers crossed that that'll help change some things too. Okay, any other questions, Kim? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tarnowski. I'm actually going to open this up for committee. Sorry, go ahead.
Does the committee wish to, or what does the committee wish to do with all the few items that we talked about? For example, the rabbit. Would you like me, the next version, to increase that to $15,000? We talked about the volunteer appreciation. It's really, I'm thinking for the next draft, it should reflect all the things that we've talked about and discussed, if that's the direction that committee so wishes to go.
I would, committee, you agree? Yes?
I think that'd be helpful, then we'll see what these comments have brought.
Start the ball rolling.
Yeah, what trouble they may wrought.
So can I get a motion to accept this report as discussed with the comments that we've made?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Epp, you're good with this?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next part of the agenda is, sorry, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I appreciate we're going to jump into the public questions. I just had a question for the chair or for the council, which is, are we going to this year focus on the question of the service levels we're providing and then figure out the budget? Or are we shooting for a specific target of a percentage increase? I'm open to doing the services as our major approach rather than focusing on the tax increase. But of course, I've already expressed my concern with the level of the increase I see here before we've done much at all with it.
Yeah, there's a bit of a balance with that, isn't there? We've had a lot of, I know myself, and we sort of alluded to it, where the public has been asking for things this year. I know the staff has already had some input and whatnot, but when I have talked to colleagues in other municipalities, they said, oh yeah, we ran on this and then we got it put on the agenda and then we found out how much it actually costs for different things. So yeah, finding a reasonable balance to meet the needs of the community as well as what we can actually afford with those service levels. Go ahead.
So I'm only raising it because last year we got to a certain position and then it seemed to me in a sort of relatively sudden fashion we turned to, well, let's start cutting existing services. Whereas if that were to occur this year, I would like us to look over the things that we've suggested early on in the process and reevaluate those before going to cut existing services. Because putting the pressure on a percentage increase, I think it's better to look at the entire package rather than force ourselves into removing services, for example, those enjoyed by our volunteer groups as a way of reducing our tax increase. So maybe just a comment right now, but I would like us to be mindful of that and think forward about looking at the services and whether we need more or less of them, and then see where our money ends up sitting and then take a look at that.
Okay, thank you very much. Good point. Okay. So this is an opportunity for the public to speak at the podium. If you'd like to step forward with any comments, please state your name and the street in which you live.
Can't speak into the mic, so I guess I'll have to speak loudly.
Okay, do okay.
Jennifer Burgess, 3837 Duke Road. I have just come to this recently, so I don't have all the details this time, but maybe more next time. I do have some interesting comments, I guess. The most important pages to me are revenues page 1 and the page 29, where we're going to run over and have to increase our taxes. So I guess I'm going to focus a little bit on, first of all, our revenue. I noticed that in our summary of this year, actually, that our projection is within what we think was within the budget. But at this point, year to date, we still have room of 1.3 million, which is quite amazing. So I'm just curious about, in the next month and a half, we're going to run up 1.3 million. That was one comment. The other is that on your page, I'm sure you do this initially anyhow, you're projecting tax revenue to be identical for the next 5 years. And of course, that will not be true. I imagine you make just projections of what will happen in the future. So it's tricky in a way to base an entire budget on just projecting exactly the same tax revenue because we're not sure how that will increase. So that was an interesting piece. I think other than that, I have a comment about the revenue from MFA, was it? It was said 0. Can someone explain that to me? I'm sorry, I didn't write pages down. But it said the MFA return was 0, but the bank interest was 50K only, and the estimate was 171K. What happened there? Because it's a beautiful year of 5+% interest. So that might be something to have a closer look at. Maybe we just didn't have that much out there invested, or we only got so much at a certain point of the year to make that difference. It's quite a difference of 100,000 in what you expected as interest. Yeah. The other comment would be that casino revenue sharing is like only about half. But is that because we don't get our casino revenue paid all at once, or we get it near the end of the year, or really casino revenue to us is down? I can't imagine in this day and age that casino revenue would be down. So that's another line I thought was curious. So I'm just going to go through this, and you can maybe look it up or do what you like with it after, because I regret not putting the page numbers down. RCMP, okay, 15% over 7 years, that's 5 officers, I believe. And in 2028, reserve is depleted. But in this year, we only paid out half of what was budgeted for the RCMP, which is kind of an interesting note on the budget line.
Mr. Nestle?
As I mentioned earlier, is the RCMP is really lag behind invoicing. So to date, we've received 2 invoices. And so the catch-up part usually comes in around March, April, when they do a year-end big reconciliation, or even beyond in May. So we, as staff as well, we have to guesstimate what the final bill is going to be, because we work on a different fiscal calendar year. So they work on April to March, and we work obviously from January to December. So with that lag on top of that, we're just guessing.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand that. The seniors has the same dilemma.
Yeah.
The seniors budget is annual. The money that comes in from another organization is not. So Better at Home is not. It's got the government, that government number schedule on it. The fire hall, I notice wonderfully, we still have 210K still to be recovered. So that should be a nice difference to the balance of the fire hall, I would say. I'm curious though, there was an RFP put out to design the fire hall, and it was about 75K, and I don't know where that is in the budget. I didn't note that, but it should be there somewhere. Or is that admin costs, not fire hall costs?
Mr. Nevsky will be able
Oh,
to
I'm
answer.
sorry.
Sorry. So that amount doesn't show up in here as revenue and expenses, because that was an item that was budgeted for 2023 that wasn't spent, so it'll just be part of the carryover. So any items that show up as new, it'll have an amount to it, but the feasibility study is not a new item. We've budgeted for it for this year.
Oh.
It just hasn't been completed, so it wouldn't show up in 2024.
All right, it won't show up in 2024, okay. Now, under planning, you estimated 3,000 for subdivision applications, and you got in 13,000. And then you're projecting that through the future. And I guess that's another projection, because we're not sure how much building is going to go on in the community over the next few years. So you're going to take the number, I guess, of this year and project it out. Yeah, okay. I had a question about the Prosperity Project. I know each year we pay them a little bit more money. Does that show as a line in here somewhere?
I'm not sure that we did do that last year.
No.
Did you decline last year?
And I, yes. They
That's
did a
why it's
presentation.
not showing. I know you get a presentation, I think, for the grant to join in.
That's South Island Prosperity.
Yes, South Island
Yeah.
Prosperity Project.
Okay.
You're not part of it at this
Yeah, I
point.
think we declined.
Well, that's to me good to hear, because I thought it was an outrageous amount of money for a small municipality. Although it may be doing great things for Victoria, I don't know about Chosen. So,
And I think that's how we based our decision, is what would be the return for our community as far as how beneficial it would be,
yeah,
knowing that we benefit from many other services
good.
of other groups directly.
Okay. You just got a plus for that one. Okay, the school, tricky part, but I think Councillor Gray brought that up. The repayment of the capital is an interesting comment, because I know half of the reserve was taken out of land reserve, and half of the reserve was taken out of policing reserve. So perhaps the depreciation, or not the depreciation, the capital repayment could be split between those two reserve funds, because those were the two at the time that were used by the school. But that's just my comment. Where else am I going here? One more. Your beautiful big community services grant of 2.4 million. It won't show on these pages, I'm sure. I just wondered how much of it may have been allocated, and at some point, is it when we discuss reserves, or when we would know exactly what is happening to our big community grant?
Well, as far as I understand it, we have 5 years to make that decision, and we haven't come to any conclusion yet. As Ms. Tarnowski said earlier, that is a conversation we need to have fairly soon, I suspect. Yes.
So currently it's just sitting in the reserve, that's it, earning interest.
Earning interest.
Earning interest.
All right, at 5 or something, I hope.
Yes, over 5.
Over 5, yeah, okay. Because the rumor had it that half of it was going to the fire hall, so don't know yet. There's nothing yet.
There's lots of different projects, and a lot of people have lots of ideas about how to spend. And it won't last long if we go with everybody's ideas.
Right, right, and I suspect it'll be gone before 5 years, even though you got 5 years to spend
We
it.
will need a fulsome conversation for sure.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it for the comments at the moment. Yes, I've got them all over this page. But I share the anxiety about a 12.6% tax increase. So we'll keep working on it, okay? Thank you.
Day one. Thank you.
That's right.
Okay, anyone else have comments from the public?
Tamara Ballard, Wooten Road. I just have 2 things. One, back to my original questions of the council increase of the wage and the other increase. I'm very curious what the other increase is, and I'm wondering if I'm...
Do you know the page that's on?
No.
I think it's
Channel.
31.
It's a $6,500 other increase.
yeah.
So I'm very curious about that. Is that for the 10,728? Is that per counselor or a split amongst all 5?
It's
Or
the total.
it's just the total of, so it's, again, like, what's the other?
So other that's not wages. So you see the wages, there's bylaw
Yes.
that states that the council will receive increase in remuneration based on inflation rate. So the other is anything that's not wages. So there's others, if you look in page 9. So all those increases besides wages.
Page
So there's
9.
a whole bunch of different categories.
Okay, I will reference that. Page 9. Okay, and the next thing is that I did hear Councillor Shimkin say about the end on page 5 about the tax increase. Maybe I shouldn't struggle here. Required with the increases. I think you should keep that. I think you should keep that because people need to see that. And
Which item was it?
47 on page 5. I think most people understand that it's 12.6 plus the 3.1 takes you to the 15.7, and to not put it there, I don't feel that. It seems like you're trying to kind of hide it in a sense when it is what it is. So.
Yeah, and we actually had that discussion last year, and what we will see is it will fluctuate as we finish the deliberations. Ms. Chernowski?
If I could offer the suggestion to just change the name a little bit, so instead of total tax increase required on line 47, we could say something along the line referencing that's cumulative and then annual increases, so it's very clear, just from the labeling that, nobody has to do the math in their head.
Right. So, my suggestion would be to leave that and add that. That's it. Thanks.
Good evening. Avril Yoakum, Windfall Road. Can I get some clarification on the school site, on the gymnasium, Susan? The gym has been rented out. Are we getting money for that?
As far as I know, just recalling off the top of my head, we rented out once for the APRM, and I don't recall another instance where it was rented out as a gym.
Okay, what about the Merrymakers coming up?
The Merrymakers, they don't pay. NACA does not pay.
Now, okay, so have you got rules in place for who pays and who doesn't?
No, we don't. That's part of the visioning workshop that's coming up.
Okay. So I would like to see more money generated from the school. There's no reason why it can't be. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. Instead of worrying about taxes to all of the public, I'm going to say, why don't we start increasing prices on users? So the gymnasium, if they're truly non-profit, and I'm going to say like pickleball, nobody's making money. That could be, it could be free. But if somebody's doing a maker's market, 60 crafters are making money. You can't say they're not profit. Maybe Mac is not profit, but that's not 100% art and culture event. So another thing, home-based businesses, business license is about maybe up to $65. It could be $1,000. It really could. We had one ourselves and I thought it's ludicrous. We made good money from a home-based business. That should be way boosted. So why make all of the homeowners pay for a tax increase when there are individuals, and I'm not saying they're the enemy, I'm just saying you pay for the bonus of being able to have a home-based business. And when that property sells, if that home-based business continues to operate, it needs to be paying some sort of commercial rate, or it needs to be shut down. I've got a lot more, but I'm going to give you that to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Good points. Thank you. Mary Lou?
Yeah, so based on the definition of the home-based business, if the property is sold and there's new owners that come in, that business should go with the old owners. that business, because we're not receiving revenue for that business, that business should be shut down, and if the owners have indeed moved on, the definition of the home-based business is the home, it's the owner of the home. So that concerns me, that we may have businesses that,
There's quite a few.
there's quite a few?
Yeah.
Okay, and I agree. I think our business license, because we've got some big businesses that started maybe out as a cottage industry, and they're big businesses, and they use the roads often disproportionately compared to the residences next door, and probably some of the other services as well. So I think that's something we should consider, is increasing those fees.
Yeah, Ms. Charles?
Just a comment that the business license bylaw is definitely one that will need amending very soon. We just ran out of time getting to that one this year. So yeah, definitely the rate is extremely and unreasonably low. So.
I'll help with that.
No business? We both got bed and breakfast, yikes.
No, I'm talking, yeah, that's something else, but it's the old time businesses that are no longer, but even the license is way too cheap. Yes, even on your Airbnbs.
Ours.
Yeah.
You didn't
Probably.
hear that?
Yeah, well, probably there'll be different categories because
Yeah.
they're not commercial zoned, and we did for many, many decades have cottage industry, so people could actually work from home and such. And then we've seen a real switch of that moving on, and now we're back to remote work. You know, people have offices, that sort of thing. So trying to define what those sorts of how we would do that. So that'll be an interesting process. Looking for input, I think, from the public will be all across the board. Mhm. Okay, so on to correspondence. We have correspondence on page 33 from Lisa Gee of Machosen Center. The mayor and I had met with Ms. Gee regarding some ideas that she had and some experiences that her tenants had experienced through some events that we had here in the village court. And I suspect that you've read through this. In regards to the Sunday market, when we had several different things that were being offered as events, I believe there was a car show, market, probably some extra activities going on at the school site just to tap into the flow of people. And so with large numbers of people experiencing litter and dog poop bags and that were left on the premise of where her businesses operate, as well as parking and whatnot. It being imposed on those businesses. So these are some things that we'll need to talk about next week at the visioning workshop, because I'm sure it's not just going to be the school, it's the whole commercial core. She came up with some really good ideas, some different kinds of signage, some communication, things that we have heard a little bit before. Certainly the EV charging stations, this is something we've talked about a couple times this last year, and there's been no move on it. There are probably climate action grants out there that we could tap into for that. The old ones need to be removed. And yes, a fee-based model, because we were paying the cost of that in the past. And then in her closing statement, lastly, and unrelated to the Finance Committee, but an effort to increase positive communication with the village core businesses, she suggests that it would be helpful for the event organizers to let the businesses know what's coming up and that sort of thing. So I know that we've seen a couple of times now, even at the corner store, it'll be the back of a banana box on a stake, store parking only. So, you know, those are kind of last minute things that happen. So we do have we do have some work cut out for us so that everything can flow a little bit better and be a lot more safe as to where people park and how they come and go. We talked about this at a recent council meeting of having a three-way stop at the corner there as well. Again, it's a way of slowing some things down, or some speed humps just in the core, certain time of year, not all year long. These are just educational components that make things just run a little bit smoother, because people are going to come here, and we want it to be successful for everyone that lives here and for our visitors too. So we've got some work ahead of us. Okay. Yes, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, thank you. I much appreciate this note from Lisa G. I was wondering, I've got just maybe two things to say. One is that we must be careful not to run afoul of, I think it's the community charter, and providing funds to individual businesses, so we can get some help from staff, just to be sure we don't we don't veer into that territory. But the other, I think the visioning session we're having is, three things, I guess. First, let's stick within the community charter. Second, the visioning thing is on the old school, actually, not on the village core. And I think we're going to need, it's so much to talk about the school, we better keep to that commitment we've made at council. And then this idea of three-way stops, I haven't heard that at council yet, so that maybe is a different, something occurred somewhere else. But the EV charges, we talked about a number of times, and council, I think, has given direction that we are waiting now for the CRD grant that's been put in, which would provide us with 2 EV chargers. And as I've told the story a number of times, we'll hear probably in January. There's that little jump there where our planner had been at a meeting at the CRD and thought the grant had been lost. And then you may recall they came back and reported that no, the grant is still live, and they're, I don't know if you want to be eternally hopeful in a grant, but they're eternally hopeful. And so that would happen in January, I believe. We could get the news on that. If we don't get it, then we need to proceed ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So in regards to the suggestions that Ms. Geese suggests here, and some ideas, we have a very healthy business fund, which those businesses have been taxed on. And actually, as you may recall, there's an overage in that reserve fund. So we do have a way of funding some of these ideas if it comes to that. But that is also further discussion as we move along. Any other comments? Okay, so seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn our first budget meeting. Moved by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Shuka. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Hey there, Sherry. Hope you're well. You get better.